You want your passion to turn into 80 hours a week. I promise you, eventually you're going to hate your passion.
Kris, do you really eat 12 dozen eggs for breakfast?
Well, 10 egg whites and 2 full eggs.
Oh my gosh, stop. You realize how much this sounds like Gaston. When I was a boy, I ate 2 dozen eggs every morning.
When my kids want to get under my skin.
Show us large.
My daughter...
Yeah, Gaston.
My daughter, when she wants to get under my skin, she'll refer to me as Gaston.
Really?
She knows that really, that irks.
I could tell I touched a nerve.
Yeah, you did.
Geez, why do you do that?
Challenge right now. I have a physique show coming up in 5 weeks. I've been working 5 months on it. And right now I'm in one of the final phases of a drop. And so I'm super deficit on my calories right now, 100 carbs a day on low days, 1,800 calories when my body's used to about 3,500. And, my trainer's done a good job keeping the muscle on. So you have to eat lots of protein. You have to be very careful with your carbs. But now we're in the final drop where I need to drop about 4% body fat in the next 4 weeks. And to lose 1% a week is, that's just part of a really, really hard push.
I find things like this super fascinating. Do you ever, like on Ellen or like a late TV show host, they have people come on and do like stupid human tricks and someone like plays with a yo-yo for 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Do you ever look at that and you're just like, the hours that they must have put into learning to like play with the
some
yo-yo?
Some of that stuff drives me crazy. I'm like, there was a time in my life, when I learned the Rubik's Cube. And I learned all the cheats, I learned all the moves, and I could basically do the Rubik's Cube in, I think my fastest was basically 90 seconds, which is not that fast. But it's impressive to anyone that doesn't know how to do a Rubik's Cube. And I think after that, I'm like, shoot, I would rather put my time cultivating something not as arbitrary as this feels.
Right. So
no practical application.
On the one hand, you have Rubik's Cube kid who just like loves it and it's this totally pointless challenge.
I'm happy for those people.
And they find fulfillment in it. Yeah. On the other hand, I've got friends who they're like, well, when I'm in college, I got to choose a career that'll be super secure and safe. And
very security-driven people.
I hate being a lawyer, but I do it.
Yeah.
Because it makes me the money that I need.
Yeah, they're sacrificing, they're making sacrifices for the money or for the security or maybe also for the significance.
And there's a lot of noise out there about this where it's like, follow your passion, even if it's like Rubik's Cubes.
Right.
And then there's other people that are like, no, your passion will screw you over. You got to stick with what like works and you just put your head down to the grindstone and one day retire. Which is it?
Well, in my world, I'm passionate about everything that I do, but not, I think, first without going through hardship.
Hold on. What?
Well, I mean, think how stupid this is. I remember when I was talking to my buddy, you know him, Rodney Beecham. And Rodney and I were in choir together when we were kids. And then as adults, he was working for my company. And I was like, Rodney, what do you really want to do? He says, Kris, I want to be a singer. And I remember just thinking, they've made TV shows for people like you that think that you're at that level when you're clearly not, so they can make fun of you. Like, love you, buddy. You're never going to make money singing.
Oh, but my heart goes out to the Rodney Beechams of the world.
No, but his passion is for that. The problem is that if you start with passion, it doesn't mean that your idea is good or worthy.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people are going to get pissed at what I'm saying right now because they're like, no. If you just stick with it long enough, let passion carry you there. There's a place for passion. Passion is, by the way, what I love about passion. I'm a very passionate human. What I love about passion is it usually puts you in an abundance mindset. And I mean abundance mathematically, meaning more than enough energy. Passion can keep you in a game way longer than making a choice where you're unmotivated or unfulfilled.
Which is why I asked you about eggs.
So it's a very important access point, right?
You must be passionate about this thing you're doing in order to eat the eggs every morning.
No, actually looks really different. So I'm really passionate about challenging myself. So I've done ultra marathons. I've been that guy that like, oh, he's crazy. He's doing triathlons. Now he's doing this physique competition stuff. Like those things that I have, the little hobbies that I have on the side, I'm not doing them because I have passion for those things. I was never passionate about running.
Yeah.
I was passionate about the challenge, and passion became more natural when I learned how to get better at something. And so, when I just look at people in general, I think it's very important that you don't only step into a space because you have passion for it, because it might still be, this is how entrepreneurs get ruined all the time. They fantasize with their passion about being an artist in some fashion. And in business, you have artists, managers, and owners. And by artist, I don't mean painter. I mean the person doing the fulfillment, the person doing the job. There was this one kid who basically said, I have a passion for making these wind chimes. And it takes me like 10 hours, and then I have this wind chime that I can sell for $200. And in my mind, I'm like, 10 hours, $200, that's $20 an hour. Your passion is going to kill you.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, why don't you think I should do the business? I said, because how many wind chimes can you make? 4, 5, not enough money. 6, 7. You want your passion to turn into 80 hours a week. I promise you, eventually you're going to hate your passion. And that's because you're pairing passion with the wrong thing. You have to realize that there has to be a balance, there has to be a plan that makes some sense. There has to be something also logical about it, or a business plan. Like, can you imagine running off into a business where you're like, dude, I can do this thing and I can get paid a certain hourly and I'm going to devote myself to building a business. I'm like, that's usually a really stupid decision. That is a way to allow your passion to get you working 80 to 100 hours a week, and then falling out of balance, not taking care of your health, your self-nurturement, not taking, your finances are not going to be taken care of with that. And before you know it, you're going to blink. 10 years will have gone by because you'll have been trying to satisfy a passion that led you down the wrong path.
Well, and my first question to this individual who makes wind chimes would be, are you also passionate about managing people?
No, he's just passionate about wind chimes as far as he knows and understands.
That's because you can't scale it.
Yeah. So in other words, it's like, well, where's the scale, or where's the exit, or where does this thing make sense? Because at some point we grow up. At some point you do, and here's the thought. How long do you have to do something before you realize that you're off path? Well, the first 3 months, it was exciting. I made a record number of wind chimes and I felt self-empowered and I made money doing something I loved. Great. Fast forward 3 years. Likely tired, frustrated, lone wolf, can't figure out how to scale, can't figure out how to increase sales, doesn't trust other people to do the wind chimes for him. So passion can blind you.
Interesting. Okay, so I've got this quote from Simon Sinek that I'd love to share, and I'm wondering if you agree or disagree with this. When we work hard for something we don't believe in, it's called stress. When we work hard for something we do believe in, we call it passion. It's from Simon Sinek.
Yeah, I mean, I think there has to be an element of self-belief, because I think you have to go back to the root of, well, what is really passion anyway? And that's where I use the word abundance. So I'm going to back out. First of all, I agree with him, and I'm going to share a little bit of a different matrix.
Okay.
I'm known as being a very, very passionate, excitable human being. And that's, if you deconstruct my life, you're going to find that I pursue things where I focus on the result, not the effort. And because the result is something that can increase and grow with time, there's fulfillment and satisfaction that comes with it. I would liken passion for me to abundance energy, mathematically meaning more than enough energy. And so if you were to put it on a scale of scarcity, satisfaction, and abundance, here's what you're going to find. Well, I don't really want to be a lawyer, going back to your example, but I'm going to do it because I'll get some prestige. It'll make my dad proud. The money should be really, really good. I'll hate doing it, but I'm certainly smart enough to, and I can get into law school. So let's go down that path.
Yeah.
So that's a person that 20 years from now is not going to be a happy person. They're not going to be happy 10 years from now. They're not going to be happy 5 years from now. They're not going to be happy
when they get the boat.
They're not going to be happy at the end of their life. And so that's the tragedy of that type of thinking. And so anytime someone says, well, if I do this thing, it doesn't motivate me. Well, that's because you're in scarcity energy. It means that you don't really believe in it, or you're believing in it maybe for some of the wrong reasons. And it doesn't give you enough life force energy as you're doing it to have leftovers. You run out. So it's kind of like running out of money before the end of the month when you haven't paid all your bills yet. Well, there's an energetic spectrum for that. And that's what scarcity means. It means I run out of desire, motivation, and energy to complete a task. And that is a byproduct of you choosing the wrong task. So passion, I think, is important and it has a place, but it has to make sense. I have no problem with something making sense full of passion out the gate, as long as it also has some logic and scalability to it. So, when I take a look at, when I was a kid, I did paper route. I was one of the last paper boys before technology and the internet destroyed that one.
Yeah.
And so literally after school every day, And then on the weekends, every morning at 6 a.m., I would go right outside the school. There was a paper shack. This tiny little wooden paper shack. The shack manager would lay out 30 papers. It was a small paper out for me. And I remember the first time I did it, my dad got it to me. There was something that was exciting about the challenge of it, but I was chubby at the time. I was 16, maybe late 15s. And it was a hard job. I had to find these addresses. I had to memorize where to put them. I had to figure out how to bike and then get on it. Like I'd learned how to bike, but biking effectively and getting on the bike and off the bike while carrying all of that weight on Thursdays.
Did you have one of those like vests?
Oh yeah, dude. It's a canvas. It has a flap because in Washington it is going to rain. And sometimes you have to pre-stuff them.
So you did this in the rain often?
Oh yeah. And so the first 6 months were brutally challenging and hard. I had to figure out how to collect money at the end of every month from people.
Is that terrifying as a 15-year-old?
It was scary for me. It was scary to do that. There were days when the job was just hard, where I didn't feel like it, where it was too wet or the road conditions were slick and I had to slow down and I wanted to go faster. 6 months later though, I had found some passion for this, got excited about it, and picked up a second route and a third route. And by the end of the year, I became shack manager. And I got paid $100 a month for that. And I got to the point where I was making $400 or $500 every month for an hour a day, which for a kid,
that's pretty good.
For a kid, right? It's not a bad thing. And so my passion grew from learning through the hardship.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So you're gonna find a contradiction here. If you are doing something that you don't really like or enjoy, and you're doing it just for some external cause that you don't believe in, Simon Sinek is right. I think that it's going to kill you. I think you're not going to last. I think you're going to find yourself unmotivated, or if you stick with it, miserable. But on the other hand, if it's something hard, but it's something you believe in, I think that if you master it and figure it out, you're going to develop passion. These days, passion is really important to me, but never to blind me from also evaluating all my options and saying, yes, but does it make sense? Because that's the danger with passion. It can lead you down the wrong path because it's not always the logical choice. It's also not always the one that's going to create the future that you want. So passion can really flub you up in business and finance and different ways.
So I feel like are there just people that are lucky? Like I think of the Kobe Bryants of the world, the Michael Jordans, who were just so passionate about the game that they played, and they had such good opportunities to be successful at it, that it's like, oh yeah, your passion ended up with you being a millionaire, famous, all this stuff.
I think that's cheap. I think it's unfair to take a very successful person and assume that, well, all their passion was an advantage. What if their passion was created from the challenge? Michael Jordan got cut from the varsity team.
Yeah, that's true.
He got cut from the varsity team. Oprah Winfrey was fired when she was originally a newscaster. She was told that she was too emotional. And of course, Steve Jobs got booted out of his own company, but then made an epic comeback. Walt Disney was turned down almost 1,000 times from banks from this tiny little mouse cartoon that he had that we now know around the world as Mickey Mouse, that has theme parks all over the world that claim to be the happiest place on earth. Better Business Bureau ratings suggest maybe otherwise. And so the reality is that the people that we look up to the most, I think that what you see in their stories is they had to go through something very challenging for their origin story. I look at me today, people will go to my events, they're like, wow, like you're so lucky. What you do is so life-changing. You're impacting so many people. You're so much motivation. Your events are the best I've ever been to. And I'm like, you're right. It was so simple. I just had to commit 40,000 hours to doing 1,000 different speaking engagements and events. And I had to develop an entire breakthrough technique after spending millions of dollars paying coaches to know how to do this. And of course, I only failed in business countless times to figure out how to do it the right way. Pretty easy.
Okay, so let's talk. Yes. I wouldn't wish that.
I think even Elon Musk these days still gets accused of getting lucky. And I'm like, you're right. Working 100 hours a week and staying in his lane of passion, that's probably simple for him.
Yeah, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
So to be clear, passion is a driving force.
Sure.
As long as the idea makes sense, then maybe you can accuse that person of getting lucky. But the reality is you always had those two components.
And this is interesting.
Passion,
working through the hard time can create passion. I've never thought of it that way.
The journey is that we're all becoming someone. And the truth is that whatever isn't growing is dying. Mm-hmm. So anyone that is trying to maintain the status quo of last year, the person's not challenged. And if they're not challenged, I promise they're not experiencing a ton of passion. Because I think that passion is a byproduct of growth and belief. And that's how you say it best right there. Passion is a byproduct of growth and belief.
So what do you say to the inverse? This person, and I've met some of them, where they're like, I like a lot of things. I'm not in love with anything. I'm not passionate about anything. There's a lot of things that I think are okay.
Yeah. These are my beautiful blah, blah, blah people.
Yeah. What do you say to them? Was like,
I think that their problem isn't finding something that they feel passionate about. It's that they have an operating a system where they have habituated the normalcy of mediocrity, the status quo. It's just become so normal to them. And to that person, I'd say, when was the last time you challenged yourself? When was the last time you pushed yourself? When was the last time you felt alive because you were failing because of how hard it was? They usually don't coincide.
Yeah. So what does a person like that do that says, man, I want to find my passion?
Then it gets to the same reason why you're like, Kris, why are you eating a dozen eggs a day? Why are you eating 20 ounces of chicken and 2 cups of rice?
Yeah.
And why is someone else measuring how you work out and what you do and when you eat over a very specific period of time? Why are you challenging yourself like that? It's because I'm addicted to the game of growth. And you're going to find that element in how I treat my marriage. I gamify parenting to be challenging. My children's privatized education outside of the school system is embedded with all sorts of hardship and challenges that are designed to develop character. I look for that component in everything that I do. We took the jet last couple weeks ago to Monterey Bay. And lately, every week we've been going on a school trip somewhere. And this we call it Field Trip Friday, even though it doesn't always happen on Fridays. And that's where I'm creating every week, like it's like a vacation day. Mm-hmm. We can wake up in the morning, have our normal routine, power hour, do breakfast, and then go out to the airfield and basically an hour or two later, be somewhere else in the country, experiencing a total different climate, experiencing something that you normally would only read about in a textbook.
Yeah.
And I want them to touch it, smell it, see it, taste it, experience it. And then that night they're at home in their beds. So we've been doing that. And when we were done seeing the Monterey Aquarium, we decided to go out to the coast and do a 17-mile e-bike journey in the relatively cold weather. Mm-hmm. And my children could have complained because they were cold and they didn't have wind barrier proof, coats. And it was way chillier than we thought that it was going to be, right? We had booked the jet a week earlier. We didn't really think that they were going to go through a cold snap. It's weird to me that that's what made the trip the most memorable for them, was that they went through something hard and challenging and there was some suffering, and it pushed them and it made their experience more memorable. And I think we created something more lasting. In fact, when I do experience design, because I'm always designing my experiences of life, when I design an experience, if there's not something challenging about it, then it will be less memorable.
Yeah.
So I think passion requires growth and what Simon Sinek says is belief. And if you have both of those components, you're going to ignite that passion.